What's up, Broad? It's your boy, Mike Muse. Welcome to the Conversation, the Mike Muse Show. I am so excited to be in conversation with my next guest. I have known her for so long. I think I'm one of the few people who had the privilege of knowing her before the world got to know her. And it has been beautiful seeing her evolution, seeing who she was, who she's become, who she's becoming. And it's been really interesting to kind of take a back seat in observing the way that the world reacts to her and the way that she reacts to the world, and the social discourse that she always stirs, creates, whether warranted or specific or intentional. It is a conversation. She is a walking conversation piece. And what I love about her is that she is willing to take the licks as much as she's willing to take the applause. And that's rare. You meet a human being who is willing and able to really do both. And ironically, we only see each other in airports. Like, I swear to God, we only see each other in airports and airport lounges, and we get such a kick out of it. That is our thing. Yeah. And we get the chance just to be when no one else is around, and we get a chance just to have these incredible conversations. And when she told me she was just writing this book, I said, you know what? This is a time for us to have a conversation around this book and to really unpack her story and what she's been up to. But really, I've been really curious just to hear how she's handling everything. And in particular, past, present, and now, and clearly going to be the future. So, ladies and gentlemen, the incredible, the talented, the activist, the mother, the human, the partner, and to which a famous artist, Beyonce, says, called Tamika. Tamika Mallory. What's happening, Tamika?
Hey, Mike. It's good to see you.
I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Family,
thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. And thank you for having this incredible dichotomy to yourself of being able to take the licks and the applause.
Well, thank you for having me. You know, this is like really a high honor because very important people make it to your show. You know, you're that guy. Yeah. You've been doing this for a long time. I was talking to someone recently and I was just saying, giving them a list of people who are journalists and respected in media, and we were saying you, and they were like, yeah, oh no, I know him. Oh my God, you know him? I'm like, yeah. Actually, like you said, before a lot of people knew me, I was working with Rachel Nordlinger, who you know well. So I started a long time. There's no pop-up to my story.
No.
It's the rough ride and the rough side of the mountain. We took the stairs.
And audience, we're going to get into her book, I Live to Tell the Story. But I do want to say to me, how do you reconcile that idea of taking the licks and receiving the applause?
Well, it's not by choice. I just feel like I was kind of destined to be in the space that I'm in, and that's what comes with it. I learned a long time ago, not through my own struggles, but actually watching the struggles of some of the other leaders that helped to shape me. And, you know, just watching from afar for a lot of people, that when you take on the role of leadership, a lot of times the actual meat of it all is not in the applause or the praise, but it's in those tough moments where you gain wisdom and where it shows you how, you know, what can you handle? Because I don't think there are many leaders, especially in the social justice, civil rights, and or political space, who have not grown from the controversy. I think that's kind of unfortunately where we develop a lot of our ability to navigate and not fall apart. So you fall apart, then you're not going to make it in this business, because leadership is not for punks.
It's not.
It's not. And so, you know, with that being said, I didn't ask for it. I have put my ruffle socks on and said, I'm getting the hell out of here. I'm gone. I'm strapping up my boots, and I'm going to take my transferable skills to corporate, to this place, that place. And I find myself right back where I am. And without even noticing, it's like I wake up and how did I start working on this campaign after I just said I was going to like go apply for a job? And now I'm in the place where there's no job that will hire me because because I wouldn't make it past vetting on Google, and I probably would be shut down. So I have no choice but to walk in what God has put before me, and that sometimes means it's painful.
I think what people don't recognize is that last statement that you just made about you can't go into corporate America.
That's a wrap for me.
How does that, you said it's painful, but like, how does that feel? You said
feels
that very matter of
very
fact, but how does that make you feel? 'Cause I think about that for you.
It feels at times, it's pretty concerning. I don't want to say scary, but concerning, because there's no pivot. Right? There's no pivot for me that I can just take off like I take off my eyelashes. I can't take off the movement and go be a different person. That's not going to happen. My name is synonymous with some of the biggest moments in this movement. And of course, I was doing a search of myself for something specific, and my comments on Daniel Cameron, the former Attorney General of Louisville, Kentucky, the state of Kentucky, who was responsible for getting justice for Breonna Taylor, and obviously he did not. And as far as I'm concerned, in many ways he was an obstructionist. And I was reading some of the stuff, and I'm like, this is precisely why when I was speaking, Ben Crump was behind me in my ear, like, don't say that. Yeah. Don't say that, because he's like, you're going to get yourself in trouble, and I appreciate Ben for that, because he has always helped me to be like, let's get this message together so you don't get sued. And then sometimes he's like, that's what you need to say. I'm like, Ben, but I thought you said over here, don't say. He's like, nah, that's okay. That was good today. So, just depends on how mad he is too. Yeah. But on the serious side, he always is like, hey, I'm thinking about your future, and I know that, we're angry, but we have to make sure we're very, very careful and mindful. And so when I was reading this stuff on the internet, I was like, was I being careful and mindful this day? But it just needed to be done. Somebody had to say that for a black man to sit on the sidelines of the injustice that happened to this young woman, and his job is literally to protect all the citizens, but it was clear that he was more concerned with protecting police officers who shot that young girl for no reason in her house and left her dead, and left Kenny Walker, her boyfriend, traumatized forever. And the things that he did after that, making her mother drive an hour and some change to the Frankfurt, which is the state capital, for him to tell her there was no charges on behalf of her child after he was asked not to do that. If you're not going to file charges, let this lady stay in Louisville at home. And instead, they made her drive all the way. So I was so upset that I was like, all skin folks ain't our kin folks. And in fact, you just like the people who helped to sell us into slavery, into enslavement. And that's the part when I was like, oh shit. I went and did it, but it was the truth. So that's what's on me. It's something that I can't walk away from it. It just is what it is.
Sometimes your truth can make you feel, the response can be a myriad of things. It could be liked, right? It could be loved, it can be disliked, and then it can be hated. I think you're one of the few people that I know that has that range. Right. And so I'm curious, because even thinking about you not being able to get into like corporate America, and not that you want it, but just the idea, it's a principle of it.
A good thing
if
I could go work for XYZ company.
Yeah, but it's a principle, right, of the idea that you can't, right? And
meanwhile, I didn't steal the money. Yeah. I didn't kill the children. I didn't do anything except tell the truth about what is happening in our society. And so,
but what is that like from a human perspective to be hated? I think we talk about it, and from a social media, they hating on me, and that's not being hated, not the same thing. Right? Like, how does that, from a human perspective? I've always wanted to ask you this. Yeah, and we just never had the time in the airport lounges to say this
in
moment.
The airport,
like, what does it feel like to be hated?
Well, there, some people think, like you said, about being hated as comments on social media. But in my life, not being able to get a job in corporate America is the least of my problems. Being hated for me means people putting threats on my life. So that's like the real stuff. The real stuff is where I am constantly having to think about my security, because I have people who send emails, phone calls, and they tell me that they want me dead. I have people who at times follow me, weird looks. A few months ago, phone in my house ringing over and over again all through the night. Pick up, hang up, pick up, hang up. There's things like that, and that's more significant to me than where I might or may not be able to get a job, because it may not be a Me Too work, and that's serious. So it is not comfortable, Mike. That's all I can tell you, is that I live in a constant state of having to watch everything. I live in a state of, which I think everybody should be careful about putting your water or your food down, but I'm at the place where I won't even allow the host of an event to bring me a plate. I just can't.
Yeah.
It's just, it's that serious that I have to, and I'm like, I know you and you're cool, but I still have to be mindful of things at that level, just because I don't know. And that's not a good feeling, to not know and to be skeptical about almost everybody that's around you, just because you can't be sure who might be compromised. Everybody keeps telling me, you need to get the vitamin drops, because I'm always like, I'm sleepy, I'm tired, with the running that we do. And I'm like, I have to explain it to them. And then they're like, damn, I didn't think about that. I can't have someone strapping up a needle to my arm and putting drops in me. I don't know who these people are,
It's almost living in a constant state of paranoia to a certain extent.
Well, I'm careful about
in
that.
terms of
I'm careful about that.
level, yeah.
I'm careful about that, because that'll drive you crazy. So I've learned, what I had to do first of all was accept that at any moment, death is imminent. Like, it could happen. So now that I've accepted that I'm prepared to die for what it is that I do, it doesn't have that same sting on me. And this is something that took 20 years to get to the place where I'm like, if that's what happens, I truly believe that I've made my mark, right? And so I have to accept that. That doesn't mean I put myself out there for it, and certainly that's not what I want to happen. But once you accept that that may be on the other side of a thing, then you don't feel the paranoia as much, but you still have to be cautious.
As you're talking, the thing that just keep popping into my head is it worth it? And the reason why I asked that is because in the book you discussed the idea of, even within the community that you're advocating for, you're still not liked. Right. You're still not loved. Right. You're still not celebrated. And so if you were in spaces, let's just keep using corporate America, progressives, conservatives, Democrats, Republicans, independents, green people, like the world around you, right, seems to be crashing around you, right? And so is it worth it still for you?
Well, but you know what?
Especially even with their own culture.
Yeah. It just depends on who have you centered as those that matter. And that's what, perspective is everything. You saw me just grow up right there from the little girl to now, right? Perspective is everything. It's like, who do I care about? Whose opinion matters? Mignon Moore, who is amazing strategist and public servant, her. She also is one of my mentors, and she made me get a piece of paper one day and write down who is all the theys in your life, because she said every day they gonna do this to me, they said this, they don't like me, they, and she's like, we need to really explore they, because I'm so tired of hearing you say that. And once we went through they didn't really matter. A lot of times they was in my head also, right? And so what I had to learn to do was to try to focus on the they that does support me, that does love me, that, these are my people. And this book tour that I'm on my 25th stop since February. Wow. February 6th was the first day. My first stop was in Louisville, Kentucky. Those are people that I worked with where many of them were very apprehensive about this group from New York flying in to Louisville and organizing in their local community. Hence the reason why we moved there physically, so that we could be with them, doing everything from grocery shopping to going to the club at night. And we became one. And now if I wanted to move to Louisville, I could, right? Because people there, not everybody, still got some folks that are like, but the community, when I'm out at a restaurant or I'm just walking the street, people come up to me, the CVS clerk, people come up to me and they're like, we love you. We thank you so much for coming. We love Until Freedom. They wear their T-shirts, and you see the community that we built there. So I could go to Louisville and worry about the folks who don't like me, or I could go there and build with the people who do, right? And that's the perspective that I've had to shift towards, because there certainly was a time, and I'm sure because I'm sure I told you, like, they make me sick. I'm so tired of it, and people. I'm getting too old to focus my attention on that. I have to grow up, and that's where I am. Is in the development stages, not perfect yet.
No, my therapist.
And that's another thing. That therapy,
I'm
baby.
Like, okay, I was about to say, this is sounding like therapy as well, because my therapist said that to me. I used to get really mad on a very granular level if, I had an event, just for example, and 10 people showed up. But out of the 10, the 5 that I wanted to be there weren't there. And so I would focus on the 5 that wasn't there. And that's a metaphor in how I used to go about the world and see life. And my therapist said, you have to stop focusing on the 5 and celebrate the 10 that do show up for you. Right. And love on them.
And what does it look like to develop the relationships with those 10? That's another thing, because I think I spent so much time focused on the negative and the naysayers that it ended up that the people who were there, they're getting ignored. For instance, Instagram is a perfect way to describe what I'm thinking, right? That the comment section on Instagram has, maybe let's say 10 people, and 3 of them are like, I hate you. You don't know what you're talking about. You're dumb. And sometimes we find ourselves responding and arguing with the 3. Meanwhile, 7 other people are saying, we love you. We appreciate that. Amen. Go right there. And you haven't even said thank you or liked their message to give them the inspiration and make them feel seen to return, because you over here arguing with, a troll who doesn't even have a real page, a real profile, who's in their grandmother's basement somewhere, and you're caught up dealing with that versus talking to people who actually support you. I had to make that shift, because prior to that, I was probably miserable. You know what I mean? If I'm being honest, miserable. There's always going to be haters. And I think people, they know what triggers you, and therefore they just get to working on it. What happened to the money that y'all stole? What are you talking about? And here I go, what money? Meanwhile, somebody else is saying, I sent you a donation, and instead of me being like, thank you, I appreciate you, I'm over here like, I didn't steal no money. I don't know who you talking to. Doing all of that. You gotta. Where's your energy going?
Yeah, audience, I think this is a good lesson that Tamika just dropped. No matter if you are an activist, whether you're a media personality, whatever you are in your neighborhood, at your church, on your job, your community center, in your family, this is a lesson for all of us, right? Is to really focus on those who love you, who show up for you. It may not be the initial people initially as you wanted it to be.
Yeah.
But I had to learn to let those in who
I can't
want.
believe you had that issue.
Oh yeah, for a very long time.
So like roll off my back.
Yeah,
don't care.
No, I don't mind being vulnerable too as well. Like I'm very much. I used to be that way, and I used to think about, man, as much as I celebrate people, I don't get celebrated in the way that I would like and to think, right? And you and I have talked about this in the airport clubs too as well. Like those over there, right? Like don't really enjoy my company when I enter the room, right? Right, and so there was always this level of frustration. So I had to just recognize that, yo, but these over here
got my back,
got me and holding me down. I'm so busy looking over here in this corner. But this corner right here is like, Mike, the water's warm over here. Pull up. And so, but that's a mindset, right? And it's an adjustment.
It is. It's an insecurity.
And insecurity.
And I certainly have definitely suffered from it.
Yes, we all do.
Because I already believed it.
Yes.
Like in my mind, I already believed I wasn't worthy of whatever, you showing up, or I'm already worried about what they're gonna say. So, but when you say it, it's like it affirms that something is wrong with me, you know?
Which is interesting that both of us are talking about this, because you have so much agency in the realm of like activism, right? And self and personal too. And I have so much agency in the world that I show up in, but it's such, we're still, just the human nature aspect of it is about like that insecurity that stirs up, and you wonder like, what is this for, right? And like, and where is this validation coming from? And then, but I will tell you, Tamika, once I made that pivot, my agency that I thought that I had got much more stronger.
Of course, absolutely. And that's what I live to tell the story. My book is all about, you know, how it's a coming of age story. So it shows you the insecurities and sort of where they came from, right? You know, when I grew up as a little girl, what was the safest option for people who had a little bit more money in the projects was to put you in a Catholic school across the street versus the public schools all around us. And, you know, I went to a Catholic school where the nuns and, you know, some of the people who were in charge, not all of them, they definitely treated the darker skinned black kids different from the lighter skinned Latino kids. Now, there's probably some that will say, I never felt that. Just like today, you've got black people that's like, I don't see racism. That doesn't happen to me. But that's my experience. And I know of other black girls who felt the same way. And so, you know, that's a place where, because at home, I was being taught that I was a little black princess, right? My family was all about the sculptures, black sculptures, Nefertiti. You know, my mom had it all. My dad, that's what they loved. They went down to Little Africa on 125th Street and the Mart 125 or Little Africa, wherever, outside on the street corners. And they purchased all the things that came from around the world. And in fact, like the African community knows my parents are important to them. When they come back from Ghana, from wherever, they're bringing stuff wrapped up. You want this, you want that. Like, you know, that my parents were in a crew of very, very blackety black folks. And so that's how I was raised. Other kids would come over to my house and they'd be like, what is that? They've never, ever in their life witnessed something that looks like, you know, what we know to be amazing. Now we appreciate it. But at that age, it was like people were startled. And so that's kind of, you know, my at home. But then when I went to school, that wasn't affirmed. In fact, I think that they knew that my parents were teaching me self-determination and all of that, and they wanted to break that in me. So when I would raise my hand to speak in a class, I'd be ignored. Or if I was talking too much, and you know, and you think and I was a very smart kid, obviously, always in the movement, learning things that other kids didn't have access to. And so I want to talk from a cultural perspective, not just reading, writing, and arithmetic. I'm over here like, well, I don't believe that is exactly what happened, or well, where on the map is Africa? You know, asking questions like that. And they would ignore me or just kind of say, you don't know what you're talking about, or make me feel other than. So as I got older, I didn't know if I was smart enough to speak out in a room. You know, I didn't think that I should be my voice mattered in conversations. These are little things that happen to you when you're a child that we take with us. And so, you know, it shows up at times now where I have to actually tell myself, no, you belong in this room and your opinion matters, you know. And so it's a work in progress, man. It really is.
There's a couple of things I don't know what it is, and if you saw me look at my creative director Dabian, we always talk about flow and things that are just affirming, and there's just something about the guests that have come on recently. There's been a pattern that's been a through line that I've been noticing, and this through line has been this narrative that I've always believed, even before I had this show, that your gifts will make room for you,
yes,
right? Just to always put your head down, do the work, and then gifts will make room for you. And I look at somebody like you at such an early age, in that story that you just told about your parents giving you the strong constitution of blackness, you know, self-determination, but then you go into the school, you're experiencing different, but you still was able to hold the line, no matter how tough and how much trauma that might have caused you. You still had the line. It was almost as if you were destined to be exactly where you are in this moment, where if I was silenced in school or if I was, I wouldn't have made the connection that I'm exercising my voice or my voice is being silent. It just would have been there. And there's just been something about a through line that we've been having with guests here that is all, it keeps coming back to childhood, where I can determine that moment that, oh, you were called into this, right? Your gifts was making room and preparing you for this moment.
Well, actually, I think I probably had to experience it in order for me to be able to understand it. And that's something that's been a through line in my life, that every time I'm going through something that makes me feel uncomfortable, there's a lesson. And I didn't always know that. And so what I did when I was a kid is just talk too much, not know what to say, inappropriate, you know, getting in trouble, jumping up and down, just doing whatever to be seen. And so now I've learned that there's a place and time, and actually being more prepared and being more powerful in your assertions is how you get the type of attention that you, or just the type of recognition and appreciation. But back in the days, not me. I was just like, let me go, you know, picking somebody's hair to see like how much trouble I could get, because I was going to get in trouble anyway. You know what I mean? I was good.
So let me have some fun with it.
So maybe I just, you know, make a mockery of myself in the process. Again, the growing up process it's really hard, because we don't deserve some of the things that happen to us, but if we understand the blessing of it, only because I experienced it can I speak to it now, you know.
So now we're getting into your Constitution, and this is an interesting place that we've gotten to. And so I'm curious now, and just as the through line with my other guests, I'm curious then, what was the moment where you know, this is it for me? Like, when was it? I'm sure it's been multiple times, but was there a moment of feeling locked in and said, oh, I'm an activist, or I'm about change, or this feels good?
Well, I think those moments, it's been multiple, as you said, and I think that it definitely came from some of the pain of activism. So you know that at some point in my life, I guess it was in 2018, I was labeled anti-Semitic by you know, the media, some people in the media and some others, and that was the moment when I was like, oh, so this is what you mean when you say that you're like gonna face things that other leaders have been through, right? Because I was over there like, why me? I didn't do anything. I don't even know what that means. Like, I really, honestly, I'm telling you, I did not really understand. Like, if someone would have said to me, you hate a particular community, then I would understand better. But I was not really familiar with the term anti-Semitic. I really was not. And I had never in my family been told that Jewish people were bad, or it was never ever a conversation. So I was completely thrown into a thing where I was like, give me a book. I need to read. I need to, you know, figure it out. And what I learned in my research was that almost every Black leader before me had been accused of the same thing. And I was like, oh, so this is what that looks like, that, you're mislabeled or perceived to be a certain way, either because of mishap or misunderstanding or intentional slander, right? Like, oh, okay. And so then it became, well, what do you do now that this is a label that you're walking around with? And what I found was good leaders have to go build relationships with people who might be don't understand you, right? You don't get to just be like, I don't care, I didn't do it. It doesn't work like that. Now you've got work to do to get to know people, perspectives. And that's the moment when I was like, oh, okay, I see what this leadership thing is about. I don't get to run. I don't get to hide. And when people start labeling you, that's actually when they're beginning to see you, because otherwise nobody would even care.
Tamika, that is so powerful. And I mean that seriously, because in thinking about you, I think about the marches.
Yeah.
And thinking about you, I think about the press conferences, right? And thinking about you, I think about the petitions. I think about Instagram. When I'm thinking about the activism of you, right. I'm thinking about the bold statements, right? And that's what I was thinking. Like, what was that moment of a press conference? What was that moment of a conference that we may not be aware of, right? But for you to say it is the pain that was the result of the activism is when you realize that you are in this space of activism and that you are an activist. And I wasn't ready for that answer.
Yeah, that's when it was. Yeah.
That's a very awakening moment to have, and in particular around the idea of anti-Semitism, right? And really to be called something that innately you're not.
Yes, yeah.
So now I want to use this, if we can just stick here just for a second. You said something really interesting, is that then you went on to build and have conversations, I'm assuming, with the Jewish community.
For sure.
Which also, too, is a mark of an activist, because you're talking about a mark of an activist is a good activist is can they build community, right? And so you go out and you reach out, talk to our audience about what that process was like, right? And were hearts and minds changed?
Yeah, well, what I realized was that people only knew me through the media or through the phone, the cell phone, right? The computer, through digital experience. There were a lot of people who had not met me. They never sat down for dinner with me. So they were literally seeing me through a lens of whatever was in their mind. And those relationships are, now I have relationships with rabbis and other Jewish people that will be lifelong, will be friends forever, because once they got to know me, they're like, okay, you need some education, because clearly you don't know some things, because I was still like ignorant and, to some of the issues. And they were like, okay, so you need that. But also it's not in your heart. We now understand that this is not in your heart, and that you don't, not only do you not hate us, actually your my love for all people is really strong and deep, and to understand the common struggles of another community only makes us stronger, and it also makes us allies and accomplices, if you will. And so that became, for me, it was like a growth, again, another growth spurt. And those relationships, and there were some tough ones, right? Because there were people who, no matter what I said, they were like, nope. But to watch people defend me within their own community is what helped me to feel like it's worth it to going through all of this stuff that I'm dealing with. It's worth it because now I actually have additional angels, if you will, additional supporters who have my back. And I wouldn't have known that if I didn't interact with folks. I hate that for me. It seems like a lot of blessings come through difficult trials, I was just literally saying to Sarita, who works with me, why me? Like, why do I always have to work so hard and go through all these things? How come I can't just be like other people, just post my book one time on social media and then it's just everybody in the world goes out and buys it? It doesn't work like that for me. I've got to work.
There's the thing that comes to mind where that's that quote that you know all too well, heavy is the head that wears a crown. Yeah. But I also talk about the other thing too, is just like, I wish, I make this joke when you go to LA a lot too as well, that store Erewhon, and I had never been to Erewhon at all. I heard about it, but I'd never been, but all of a sudden it got popular with the people making reels about Erewhon recently. And so in this one reel that came up, and it made me want to go to Erewhon because the delusional aspect of it, right? And I was just like, I want to be delusional one day and just buy like a $50 carrot, right? And just and to see what it feels like to be delusional. But really what I'm trying to say is a metaphor of what does it feels like to walk around ignorant and not having a care in the world and not really recognizing the world around you is on fire.
I want to be
and you have to be the one to communicate to the world that's on fire. And folks don't know what that does to a person who's always aware, especially
when
that
people
the world
are like,
is on
why
fire.
you always gotta be the one?
Yeah.
You always gonna say something, always keep opening your mouth. Like I go through that with brands, right? I like certain things. I used to wear Gucci all the time. That was my thing. Yeah. And then when the blackface sweater came out, I had to cut off Gucci. Yeah. Then Nike had their issue, they cut their contract with Kyrie Irving. Yeah. I felt it was unfair. Now I don't wear Nike. I love my Nikes, and now I don't wear Nike. This happened, that happened. I'm just like, why do I have to know? Yeah. I don't want the awareness. Don't tell me either. Don't tag me. Now people are tagging me Lululemon. I'm like, no.
Not the Lulus.
No, no, you will not take my Lulu.
You are blocked.
No,
you're blocked.
But
you're blocked.
I shifted over to actively black. Yeah. So it's like, why me every time? Yeah.
It's
and
such
there's
a real
some people
thing
that don't know and they don't care. And sometimes I really do want to live like that, just normal, everyday life. Like, why me?
Yeah, I want to feel that.
Yeah.
I want to be.
You don't have it either.
I don't have it.
Too
That's
much.
what I'm saying. That's why I love Erewhon, right? This isn't an endorsement for Erewhon, but I just want to be delusional. I swear. We got to go to Erewhon together.
Right.
I just
Let's just go.
$50 carrot, right? And just eat it, right? And watch people smile and walk by.
Living their lives.
And have no idea what's happening geopolitically. Right. Have no idea that the nuclear energy is really about to be transformative. Right? And just don't care. And I want to know what that feels like, just to be that free.
That's not our calling.
It's not. And it makes me think about what I love about James Baldwin is I felt like, for me, and I'll be curious your relationship with him, is the idea that he just ages like wine, right? For me. I heard this one quote when I was earlier in life about, and you heard it too, to be conscious of Negro was to always live in a constant state of rage. And that didn't connect with me in my 20s. But in this age I'm in now, and the world experience that I now have, and to our conversation we're having, the education I have about the world, there is this constant state of rage that exists in me multiple times through the day. Like, there's a microaggression. Right. And I could be like, did you not give me enough ice?
Right.
Because I'm black?
Exactly. And
or are you just low on ice today? Right. So you try to rationalize. And it could be the latter.
But a lot of times they just use black.
But then it's like, but I think it's because I'm black.
But you know it. Yeah. You know it.
Wait, the iced coffee is normally like 20 degrees. Right. Today it's like 25 degrees. Now what happened? Is it because I'm black?
Because they're light on ice.
You're right.
And they decided to give less to the black man so they could give more to somebody else. Like, it's still all connected. Answer one and answer two.
And it's in your head. And you rationalize all this, where somebody else would go and just be like, they were just low on ice.
Think about it.
And then it's like, thank you for not giving me enough ice today. Right? I'm just like, that's what I mean. Like,
think about it.
But that's what that James Baldwin quote means so much to me.
Conscious is the word.
Yeah, and I'm sure I love the word, the moment between and it's popular on social media. I'm sure you've seen it. The one with him and Nikki Giovanni, and she talks about this idea of lying to her. Right? She's like, she wants her partner to come and lie. You're out being performative in the world, and then I see you at your worst. Right? Give me your best, even if you have to perform and lie to me.
Fake it.
And I'm like,
Fake
yes.
it. Yeah,
like,
that's me too.
what?
Me too.
I want you to come home and lie to me.
Me
Do you know what I
too.
mean? Like,
just rub me down
Yeah.
and make me feel like everything is okay. But you know what? We know that when we're living in a state of delusion, that's when things really burn down.
it does.
Right? Like that's because people were living in a state of delusion during this damn election.
But Tamika, we're still going to Erewhon. I don't care.
You don't care.
I'm going to
gonna-
send you a calendar invite.
with
Serena,
the-
you can pull up too. Davian pull
With
up. We're
everything.
going to get $50 carrots.
And we don't
And we
care.
maybe are just to get one. I ain't trying to get two. I ain't trying to be that delusional.
But
Right. I'm
I
not
tell
trying to
you
spend
what,
$100 on
I
2
tell you
carrots.
what, let's meet at where they have $500 shoes.
Yeah.
That's real delusional.
That's real
right?
delusional. Which is why, for a point of levity, my audience understands why I gatekeep because
Yeah.
my fragrance costs that much, right? I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't spend money like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
right? You know
Are
what I
you
mean?
one of those
And-
people?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I
Okay.
don't want to walk in a room and everybody smell like me after I spent $500
That's
on
right.
fragrance. I'm absolutely not telling you.
Ah,
right? I'm
exactly.
absolutely not
You
telling
don't know what it is.
You
Oh,
won't
you
know.
one of those?
Oh, I gatekeep openly.
When someone says, "Oh, what's that you're wearing?" You go, "I don't know."
Oh, you know what I say? I have an answer. You ready?
What is it?
Sweetie, you might appreciate this. I say, it's a oud based.
Oh,
So you answer,
something
but you
that-
don't answer.
So you tell them what the
It's, and they
what-
think oud is a name
yeah,
sometimes.
and then they go look at because they don't want to seem dumb.
No.
So they're like, or uninformed.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, okay, let me go
And
look.
Tamika, you gotta hit him a little shoulder. You say, "Oh, it's oud." You know what I mean? Like, just give a little
You know
right
what?
shoulder.
You're a dang on
It's a
fool.
oud based,
You a
right?
fool.
And then sometimes you might do like this.
You might actually
know what
need
I
a
mean?
little help.
No, I do.
Mental
And then
help.
finally, somebody caught on to it, and he said, "I notice you, Mike. Every time someone asks about your fragrance, you say it's an oud base, but you're not really telling us the name." I was like,
yeah.
aha.
So did you tell him?
No, I still didn't.
still-
Tamika, I'm not.
Even after you were found out,
Tamika, I'm not playing with you.
you
Like,
already exposed, and you still
Tamika,
held it.
Tamika, I don't spend a lot of money. I am very,
But what you
very
do,
specific.
like,
But what I
you-
do on the
yeah.
fragrance, I don't want you smelling like my $500 bottle, right? And by the way, it took me 6 months. That's another thing, Tamika. Sorry, this is about you, not about me. But if I could have a moment to
you
vent
know
to
that's
as
how
well.
we do.
It took me 6 months to find this
To
fragrance.
find what you love.
Because I was wearing Baccarat Rouge. I'm not wearing it anymore, so I can talk about it, right? But like everybody in New York smells like Baccarat
Sick of
Rouge.
that.
Do you know what I mean? David, we talk about it all the time. And so I was like, nope, I got to find a new scent. So I went about 6 months trying to find it.
looking.
And finally, funny enough, it was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner that this person recommended a certain fragrance. I was on the hunt. And
So
this
you were
became this is a
having
real
open
problem.
conversations
Yeah, because it was a
about
problem
this?
for me to because it was a problem. I know I got issues, and I can honestly admit that. You know what I mean?
So you found it.
I finally found it, so I'm definitely after the work
It's
and the
very
cost.
expensive for the good stuff.
Exactly, expensive, and for the amount of research I did.
Yeah.
At this point,
Listen, it's expensive for the
Yeah.
good stuff, and
Yeah.
that needs to include us.
Us.
Right? Like, as humans, it should
Yes.
be expensive.
Expensive, friend.
To have access to
Yeah.
us and to have our intellectual property, our intellectual thinking. It should cost you something. It may
does.
not be money,
Yeah.
but it should certainly cost us. It costs you in the way that you treat us,
Yeah.
and in the work that goes into becoming acquainted with us. We can't give it away.
Only you can bring a $500 fragrance and
It's
$50
oud based.
carrots or air wine back to activism,
Right.
right? Yo,
It's oud
oud,
based.
hit it with the oud next time. Tamika. You don't gotta take. I mean, you are a giving person, so you might be open to do it. But like,
Yeah.
just hit it with oud next
I
time.
do.
Right?
I do. I just tell people.
Oh, you're a blessing, right?
Oh, so you're just you haven't changed this conversation.
You just see me being
has not
satirical
changed
with you?
your mind.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely not. Oh, no,
love you so
absolutely
much,
not. Absolutely
Mike.
not. I do want to talk about, and I won't keep you all day. I'm sure you guys have lots of things to do today, but I do want to ask you about what it's like being the face of movements. Because you have been the face of many, but one that really stands out is like during this racial reckoning dynamic that we went through during COVID and George Floyd era. And also to the Women's March, you were very much the face of that. And I just from afar just saw you navigating different worlds. I saw you from observer navigating relationships.
Right.
I saw you navigating self. I saw you navigating lies or conspiracy theory. I just saw you just navigating, being the face. If you can just talk to me about what those moments were like. Those were monumental. I just want to just say that. No matter what people think about those two movements in particular.
Oh,
Those
yeah,
two
no,
movements
really. I would do it again, knowing everything that I know now.
I just want to let you know those two movements were very pivotal in American history.
Yeah. Thank you.
The racial reckoning, that's always going to be a defining moment of American history, and that's part of you and the movement, and others are involved too as well, but you were the face, or one of the faces. And then the Women's March was a very defining moment during that time period of resistance. And so I just want to just recognize that. I don't want to just gloss over that because we're friends, but I just want to make sure I put that's going to be in the canon of American history. And so, like, talk to me about what that felt like being the face and the cost of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could go through and
it's in the book too.
The unfortunate things that go along with,
because this has been part of our narrative so far. It's the pain.
You're basically putting yourself out there as the one to be attacked from many different people for many different reasons. Anytime women come together, especially as diverse as the Women's March was in comparison to the women's movement of the past, this was not a moment for all white women and then the black women walking in the back. Like, we made space for women of color, and that was not easy to do at all. So it definitely put us in the eye of the tiger, because there were people who saw us and said, oh no, we see what you guys are trying to do, just by the nature of the fact that the four co-chairs were, a black woman, a Palestinian Muslim woman from Brooklyn, then you had a Mexican American and a white woman. That in and of itself, those four, you're doing too much. Yeah. Right now, we know that you're trying to send a message of inclusivity and intersectionality and diversity that we don't want. And we see it happening in this moment, where there's literally a dismantling of all of that ideology, if you will, just to remind the world that America still wants to be a place that is for white men first, and then everybody else kind of becomes a, subgroup. You have better language to describe what they're doing. And so, being the face of something like that, there was a lot of intentional work done to dismantle it, to break us as much as possible. And that's hard. But let's talk about the good side, because there are some good pieces. We made history that you can't take from us. As you said, history books will absolutely record what we accomplished, and you will never be able to erase it. Never. You'll have to say that the largest mass mobilization in American history was organized by these women and a very diverse group of women. There are people who ran for office because of the Women's March, right? When I think about Lucia Macbeth, Congresswoman from Georgia, sometimes I don't agree with some of her positions, but I have to tell you that one thing I am absolutely proud of is that the Women's March was one of those moments that gave her the fuel to go from my son being killed by a white man who said his music was too loud in a gas station in Florida, and I'm a mother who's just trying to raise my child, to now I'm actually a congressional member whose vote matters in terms of shaping this nation. That happened at the Women's March. She told me that, and look at her now. Sabrina Fulton went out, also Trayvon Martin's mother, running for office, getting the support of women who were a part of this sort of world of organizing that we created. We made history in ways that, for me to be, or to dismiss it, would be dismissing God's blessings, right? And I know better than that. I know to say, yes, it was painful, because he didn't say the weapons would not form. He just said they will not prosper. And what did prosper is the beauty of something that cannot be forgotten. And the peoples whose hearts and minds were shifted. Let me tell you, there are white women, especially Bob Bland, who was one of the co-chairs of the Women's March, who can speak to racial justice better than you and me. right? Like she studied, she went through the fire also, you know, in many ways. Some of those white women were like, this is hazing, you know, like, I don't want it. Bob wasn't one of them, but they were like, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Back to our original point.
Yeah.
I want to be delusional. I liked it where I was.
Yep.
Now you are introducing me into something, and my mother doesn't like me anymore, and my friends don't invite me to dinner, and my husband is upset with me because now I feel the need to say we can't sit around the kitchen table, especially around our children, and call people monkeys and N-words and other things that was absolutely happening in their lives. That, for me, Mike, that's a big deal. That we shifted people and their minds, and not just their minds, but their hearts, to have a more of a consciousness for our community. I can think of several people in my mind who I know made the shift, and they will write me and say, I've been exiled, but I like it better here. I don't want those friends. I don't want those family members anymore. So that's another good part. Then the support of people around the nation. Black folks, brown folks, just a diverse group of people who said, I feel seen.
Wow.
I feel seen. That's all. That's actually, I believe, it should be our major goal in life, is to make other people feel supported and seen. Like, if you accomplish that on your journey, it's like, you know, Mother Dukes, Hazel Dukes passed away.
Yeah.
The biggest heartbreak of, like, my mother had a stroke in 2020. That was like my second, because my son's father was murdered also, but that was like my second huge heartbreak. My mom went from being a dancer, incredible dancer, leading line dances, 80 million people online looking at her videos, to having part of her body impaired. That's a hard thing. My next one, big blow, was Hazel Dukes passing away. And at her funeral, multiple people got up and talked about, because, you know, there was like 16 eulogies,
of course,
before Rosalind Brock, my sorority
sister. That's the night before.
My sorority sister gave the ultimate eulogy, but there was at least 16 others. And everyone who spoke about her favorite song, or, you know, something that they know about her, that sticks out, or that will stick with us forever, is she loved the song, if I can help somebody along the way, then my living will not be in vain. And I think that, for me, all of these moments, the racial reckoning, where it was difficult for us, but Breonna Taylor's family, George Floyd's family, Ahmaud Arbery's family, and other families knew they had support because we were out there putting our lives on the line. That, for me, is like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Tamika, that right there, I couldn't think of a better place to end that conversation, because that answered the question that we talked about earlier.
Is it worth it?
Is it worth it? And the passing of Hazel Dukes in the eulogy put all that into perspective.
Yeah, if I can help somebody. And she definitely took the licks. She absolutely took the licks. I actually have a funny video on my phone of her saying, because they love to get you. And the reason why I know is because I've been got.
Oh, Mama Duke.
Because she's been through a lot, you know. She's had a bloody head, but she never bowed it. As Rosalind said, she never bowed her head, no matter what was happening. And so before she passed away, I saw her about 6 days before she died. And, you know, she's a godmother to me and so many. Hazel basically raised me from the teenage years. She told my parents, out here in these streets, I got her, right? So she was with me through over and over again all the years of you know, my activism and sort of my career. And I was talking to her maybe 2 weeks before the end was near. And we were having this conversation. I'm like, Ma, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do without you, which I still don't. I haven't figured out the rest of my life, because there's not a fight that I've been in that I could not depend on her to show up and cuss somebody out on my behalf, and to go in a room where I was not and say, Tamika Mallory, Right. And so I have no idea what life looks like without her. And I was like, Ma, I just don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. And she said, don't cry for me. Do what I've done. Do what I've done. She told me, in fact, she called me on the night, 2 nights after my book release party in New York. And it was incredible. Everybody you could think of was there. It was packed or whatever. And she called me. They tell me you had a good party last night. You know, Ma would have been there. And, you know, I'm telling her, I was packing and doing something. And I'm listening to her. And she's like, tell me what happened. Who was there? What was the highlights? Blah, blah, blah. And before we got ready to hang up, she said to me, you know, you remember. This when I knew time was coming. She said, you remember what we've done. And when you get in a tough space, when you feel like you're in a tough spot, remember how we navigated. Remember what we did. And you remember who you are. And that sticks with me. It's going to be with me forever, that she was preparing me and letting me know we have done this before. So don't get in a tough spot and start shaking. Remember who you are. So never, ever change your ways, right? Except to grow, of course. But don't change your ways. Don't bend. Don't buckle. But remember how we navigated. When I think about that navigation, right, that you got to dance with life. You know, some days it's good, some days it's not. It gets hard. You get in spots. How you dance with your situations. That's what she taught us. That life is truly a dance. And so I'm in it. I'm on the dance floor, you know. But I had to take the red bottoms off sometimes because my feet hurt, my knees hurt too from this movement, bruh.
Tamika Mallory, I think Mama Duke's saying that do what I've done and giving you your final instruction is going to be forever your North Star. And I think that's important for every leader, is to be able to have what is their North Star and to remember their why and to know, is it worth it? And this has been such a beautiful conversation. I am so glad you stopped by my show, the Mike Muse Show.
Big time. Mama made it.
I'm so no. You blessed us to make it. I just want to just give you flowers and say thank you for all that you have done for culture, for community, for history, taking the licks and showing us what it's like to grow. And to admit some wrongs and stand on your square when you're right, and to show us what the range of being human is openly. Thank you for everything you've done, Tamika, and being history and living history. It's rare we get a chance to be around living history, and because you're my friend, I don't take that for granted as well. So I want to make sure I say that. I love you.
Love you.
Keep dancing, my friend.
Yes, sir. You meet me on the dance floor in the airport.
At the airport, I got you.
Moving
with our
from
$50
state
carrot.
to state. Yeah. Love you.
Until next time.
Love.